One thing I'm always having to remind, always is a strong way of putting it, but I'm frequently having to remind those who are newer to, this fitness thing, this bodybuilding thing. Because here it is. The assumption is that anyone who's gotten things done, who's accomplished their goals, that it was always like smooth, wonderful, this beautiful journey where not a whole lot of things went wrong. But things like this, I misloaded, forgot a whole plate. No one saw, I think. But yeah, a lot of these noobs, they think that things must have, I wouldn't say come easy, but when they're getting things done, they're constantly having to do things like in a way where, or in a fashion, or with these variables that they would prefer not to do it under these conditions. But that's just how it is. Like, you kind of have to be all weather, and like, I'm hardly ever do I get 100% out of a day. I think I'm just really good at getting my 80s and my 90s, and logs like this. I think next year, ideally, if I made the changes that I suspect I've made to my physique, I hope entries like this are a reminder to people that a lot of it was just doing the same old boring stuff over and over again, and doing it when you weren't in the mood, and doing it when a day kind of, it was out of order, or just again, I think the biggest thing is like having to do things under conditions in an environment, whether it's like the gym or in your own head, that you rather not, because that's what this whole last week was, for reasons that I'd rather not get into. But the show must go on. This off season, the biggest thing I wanted to improve upon was like my thickness. My width is okay for someone who is put together like the way I am. Like, I am so small boned that unless you've seen it in person, like, you probably think if you're 5'8", 5'9", that you're more like frail than I. Nah, trust me, man. So I'm decently wide, but I just don't have a whole lot of that like natural Neanderthal like to me. And this is important, especially in bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, where you're trying to get as peeled as possible. Because, they say this a lot, that like shows are won from the back, right? True, I think to a large extent they are. However, if you're conditioned and like you're missing glutes, you're missing hamstrings, you're missing parts of your back, it has the way of, it almost looks lazy. It looks lazy. It looks like, it just looks lazy. It looks bad. In a way where it's hard. You have to have seen it to see it, to know what I'm talking about. And even though I've done a fair number on those areas, I still think that for me, like, it's the X frame that does more for me than like the thickness. So this off season, the hinging I wanted to keep up with. I've never been a good hinger. A lot of my hinging previous, like before 2018, 19, was actually a lot of pulling off the floor, which, it's like there's a lot of hip extensor, but it, like, your quads are also like bro spotting the lift, right? But as of 2019 for sure, I started getting the hang of hinging. I really came into my own with that, mostly the good morning. But if you hinge well, you're pretty good at keeping shape through your torso. So the spinal erectors, especially for someone like me, where it's like, man, those are some chicken bones, bro. They haven't had a whole lot of direct training. So enter the Jefferson curl. I've been really working on this thing since beginning of the year. There's a lot better options in this. I think a big one is, this is the thing with like torso work. It's like people don't realize it. It's like, if your pressing can benefit from a bench, right? Like, how about other muscles in your torso, like the rows, right? But also the erectors. So if I had access to a GHR more frequently, that's what I would do instead of the Jefferson curl. Much better. Just the stability that you get, it's just the stability, the added proprioception, because you kind of, especially if your GHR has this shape, you just really get to push to those really lengthened positions through your erectors. So, but anyhow, Jefferson curl for now. What was that? And then this right here is to just finish off the glutes. Looks like a bro leg press, right? But yeah, the goal here is to have the seat up as high as I can so that my glutes are more stretched, and then my ankle never goes, it's like right underneath my knee. It never, excuse me, goes behind the knee, because we want a little help from the quad, but we don't want that to be the butting in too much as we try to bring the leg press back up to its starting point. So 2 sets of that. The Arsenal leg press is good, but it's so overbuilt. Like, you just, like, your shins hurt just looking at it, because you just imagine like bumping into that thing, right? And then this is because I don't have, talk about things not being perfect all the time. I don't have frequent access these days to a seated leg curl. My gym with the seated leg curl is just too far away to go to right now at this point. So I do this one right here, and yeah, it's a second hinge of the day. The Jefferson curl, again, it kind of, yeah, there's some hip extension there, but we're trying to minimize that. So this right here is yeah, it's a hinge, but it's a little bit more hamstring bias. Ooh, all right. And then when we're talking about the top half, when it comes to like adding that thickness up top, I'd say, the UK bros use the word density. I like that. Density is a good word too. But yeah, the upper back primarily, like the traps, the rhomboids, all that. Rear delts for me are pretty good, but that mid back area, oh man, I need some work there. So I'm excited because this whole off season, if there is something that I have been doing differently, and I keep mentioning it here, and if you haven't played with it, you gotta try it. So first set with this upper back row, 8 to 12 reps. I think I went over on this set, so I have to go up next week. But 8 to 12 reps, full ROM failure, because I do think there's still some stuff that you can get from the shortened positions. But then, because remember, the strength curve on pulling movements is the inverse of a press. If you've been kind of rowing all the way back like a good boy your whole like training career, it's like the equivalent of having pressed with a reverse band, technically, right? So you'd be shortchanging yourself. So for my sets that follow the full ROM failure, it's I think in this case it's like 30-35%. These were PRs, both these sets, 5s, I believe, with 270 pounds. So yeah, now we're making up for the fact that, again, this part right here, you just have such an advantage from a leverage perspective. So so this right here, the reverse drop sets or the upsets, never played with those before. I'm excited to see, or this much anyways, or I have it much more refined than I did. I did have those last off season, but not to the extent where 60% of my pulling is virtually those. But yeah, those will leave a dent. Oh boy, will they leave a dent. The other thing that I think when we talk about like just being like thick and dense and Neanderthal looking, that upper chest, and for me that's just an area that's never come naturally. 20-pound flies, I think, looks ridiculous, but when you think about it, this strip of deli meat you have here is probably not a whole lot thicker than some of the heads in your delt. So I think this is very appropriate if you're hitting the spot. However, I did discover something while filming. This is why everyone should film themselves. And yeah, that's right. I go into this mechanical drop set, turn it into a press. I swear to you, I'm doing my best. If I keep it in the line of fire of the clavicular head, that's all I can do with 20s. And trust me, fresh, I can do hundos on this. So yeah, that it tears me up. But I figured this out today. I think I needed to have my humerus a little bit closer to my body. I think I am getting more pop up here. So it goes to show you, this is why filming is so important. And here's the thing, is that you don't need a tripod the way I did. Although the tripod did come true for me here today. But I usually use my water bottle. Just to be polite and inconspicuous about it, I just lean it against my water bottle and no one knows. But yeah, so discovered this day. So filming, ultimate hack. And the mechanical drop set with the fly. And then after this, I finish off with some rear delt pulls. It looks almost like the upper back row, but if you know, you know, it's different enough. And the main thing, I'm just in a plane here where my scapula is not doing a whole lot. But yeah, that was the goal. The goal this off season was to add thickness up top. It's not fancy. It's a lot of thickness up top and through, mostly up top, because the glutes and hamstrings are pretty okay. But to add more to that even, and especially for me, it's like I want to be competing for a very, very, very long time. That area is kind of like one of the first areas. I think arms are up there, but you know, the posterior chain, like those muscle groups, they go as you get older. So I need to like start forming my my investment fund, right? But yeah, that the erectors, the traps, the rhomboids, they just have a way of it makes your physique look rugged. It makes it look like you do all the hard stuff. And especially in the divisions where you're coming in like extra crispy, it just, I know it's just bodybuilding, but it just has a way of making like the physiques look like dangerous, like this guy can do stuff, right? So yeah, that's the goal. I think a little bit too much of a Dorito, right? I think it's like the medial delts, side delts, whichever you prefer. The tapered waist, the quads flaring, the lats, like that all has, it's great, beautiful. The X frame, which most of like bodybuilding is mostly X frame, but if you combine that with some like good thickness, some good density, and especially if you come in lean, geez, it's you almost look like you're sporting animal muscle up there and not necessarily like human muscle. So that's what I'm doing. Again, a lot of these things you guys have seen over the last few weeks, it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Not all of it's a highlight, and even the highlights, they're so, at this point, I'd say there's no like surprises that really take place. But yeah, that's the point I'm trying to get across, is that a lot of a lot of your success depends on you just being relentless with showing up. And I'd say that if it feels like, man, like this story isn't as pretty as I thought it was going to be in my own head, as I decided to commit to this, you're probably doing it right. You're probably doing it right. So, because that means you're showing up regardless of obstacles, regardless of things that would discourage a lot of people. And they do discourage a lot of people, and that's why a lot of folks don't get to where they want to get to. So yeah, that's what I'm doing to get thicker. I'll see what pops into my mind come next week. But yeah, that was the main thing that like ran through my mind this last week, was the fact that a lot of folks think that if you've done a few things, that like, boy, you must have it really good, that everything must be lined up just the way you wanted it to on most days. But we're being perfectly honest. Those of us were getting things done, and you can go back and think of things that you're proud of, whether it's something at work, school, whatever, that you made happen. Yeah, it was the accumulation of a lot of days of you showing up, and a lot of those days weren't exactly pretty, but you got the work done. And it's no different when it comes to bodybuilding. So yeah, I'll see you guys next week.